It's a real privilege to attend this very first Arctic Circle China Forum. What a wealth of expertise on Arctic that you've gathered here, and what a wealth of a program. Really, congratulations and thanks to the hosts and the organizers. Thanks to the government of China and to the Arctic Circle. As said, like Special Representative Gao Fang, my colleague Björn Lyrvall from Norway and other colleagues, I've arrived in Shanghai straight from the Arctic Council Ministerial in the Arctic city of Rovaniemi. And let me say, to travel from the north of Finland, from Finnish Lapland, across the time zones to China, to continue the dialogue on Arctic matters this week, that vividly illustrates how truly global the Arctic has become. And of course, it's a somewhat overused expression, but it's nevertheless true. What happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic, and it's also true that the source of what happens in the Arctic is frequently not to be found in this region. So in fact, a global mobilization of resources and action is required to deal with Arctic challenges. That's what makes this forum so important. And that's also why Nordic and Chinese Arctic experts over the past couple of days have met for the 7th China-Nordic Arctic Cooperation Symposium this year at the Shanghai Ocean University, and next week we'll meet for the 8th symposium at the University of Umeå in Sweden. There's a new Arctic emerging that really requires new responses, new action geared at adaptation and resilience, because we are all in this together. As we've heard, the Arctic Council, its member states, but I also want certainly to mention our permanent participants, the indigenous groups, and also the dedicated observers provide part of the solution. I think that we have succeeded over the years in building a political environment that generates win-win solutions. As we heard, we have concluded a number of legally binding agreements to foster closer ties, the search and rescue, oil spills prevention, and science cooperation agreements, all of importance to transnational commitments and transnational cooperation. The Arctic Council working groups continue to produce world-class scientific reports on Arctic challenges, and they manage hundreds of operational and important projects. And I want to say that we indeed appreciate the active contribution of China to their work. It's by working together more closely and in good faith that we have also been able to strengthen our cooperation for peace and stability and to realize the great potential inherent in the Arctic. And I indeed look forward to many inspiring panels on how to develop the Polar Silk Road, the new communications, the trade networks. All that is really very much welcome. But as we know, the Arctic is not only about opportunities. As we know, it's also very much about challenges. And in light of the discussion at the recent Arctic Council Ministerial, when we agreed a short statement, but regrettably, for the first time in 23 years, did not manage to agree a joint declaration because of the differences on climate change. We need to remind ourselves that the scientific findings are robust. A climate crisis is not a future scenario, it is happening as we speak. In its Climate Change Update 2019 report, presented by Working Group AMAP of the Arctic Council to ministers in Rovaniemi a couple of days ago, they report that annual air temperatures in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18 were all greater than any year since 1900. Sea ice volume in September has declined by 75% since 1979. global warming and its effect on the Arctic may not only lead to an environmental and ecological disaster, they are also a potential security threat of global proportions. And in addition, there is an invoice waiting. Arctic warming could have a cumulative net cost of $90 trillion at the end of this century. The Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement represent a paradigm shift, enabling us to embark on the development of our societies and aspirations to provide a good life, not only for ourselves, but also for our future generations. And the future belongs to those who embrace the new green economy, to those who invest in sustainable technologies and renewable energy systems, and those who seek innovations for the future rather than solutions from the past. That's why Sweden has set a target to be carbon neutral by 2045. And in the long term, the low carbon story is the only growth story on offer. So let me stress, here's the daunting to-do list that we have in front of us, all of us, Arctic, non-Arctic states in our transnational cooperation. Dear Arctic friends, although not a coastal state on the shore of the Arctic Ocean, Sweden is an Arctic country, with our Arctic North defying, I would say, some of the prejudices about the region. Yes, the Swedish Arctic is also a place of rugged, empty beauty with breathtaking northern lights, but it's also a source of much Swedish wealth. Above the Arctic Circle, more than 90% of Europe's iron ore is mined. Unique expertise has been developed on ice and cold climate technologies. The northern county of Norrbotten has been named an innovation leader by the European Commission. The city of Luleå serves as home for Facebook's largest server halls in the world, dependent on reliable energy, high security, free cooling from the cold weather conditions. Ecotourism is booming, and previous disadvantages at this area being dark, cold, and sparsely populated have been turned around to advantages. Add to that, Sweden is a country with a proud history of polar research dating back to explorer Adolf Erik Nordenskiöld, who in 1879 was the first man to sail the Northeast Passage or the Northern Sea Route, or for that matter, the Polar Silk Road, connecting Europe and Asia. His ambition was to open this route for trade, but harsh ice conditions proved it was impossible at the time. Maybe the time is now about to come. And Sweden has remained a dedicated polar research nation. Through our Polar Research Secretariat present here in the conference, our universities and university collaborations with other Nordic universities, powerful research icebreaker Oden, the past summer making its 9th international research expedition to the North Pole, and add to that terrestrial Arctic research stations in Abisko and Tarfala. There is scope for closer trans-regional cooperation, for sustainable economic development and trade, and for polar research. The Synoptic Arctic Survey, the Mosaic Expedition, a couple of examples in point. No doubt, steps will be taken here in Shanghai over the next couple of days, and will continue at forthcoming ever impressive Arctic Circle events. Sweden, on its part, will co-host with the European Union an Arctic Forum in our northern city of Umeå in October this year. Foreign ministers, including from Arctic Council observer nations, will be invited, as will many experts in the Arctic family, yet another venue for closer trans-regional ties. So with those words, let me again express my gratitude to the hosts, the Ministry for Natural Resources and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, the organizers, Arctic Circle, the Polar Research Institute of China, the Shanghai Institute for International Studies, and the Chinese Oceanography Society. I really look forward to an interesting forum, and thank you for your attention.